in front of me.
There we go. So, when this silo was active, there was a live nuclear warhead right there underneath our silo cover. So as you can imagine, the security here would need to be really, really tight. In order to keep everyone safe, when a new crew would arrive to relieve the 4-person crew working inside in the control center, they would arrive here at the gate. When they arrived at the gate, they'd leave their vehicle and they would make a series of 4 telephone calls to gain secure access to the site. The first phone call would be made right there at the gate. They'd leave their vehicle and they would take their equipment over here to the top of the access portal. When they got to the access portal, they start down the stairs and there's a telephone and a door. They'll make their second telephone call there. There's a security feature connected with that, and that is that they need to make that second telephone call within 3 minutes. Do you mind making sure, to make sure everything's covered, because we're going to be going down below, and my boss tells me she'll throw anybody out who doesn't have it covered. So when they need to make that phone call in 3 minutes, and if they don't, that means that the crew that's working is going to call security to come and secure the situation. And the reason for that is, let's say that crew is under attack or has some kind of problem, they can deliberately take more than 3 minutes to make their second phone call as a trigger. Once they've made their second phone call safely, they'll cross through the threshold and they'll make a third phone call. When they make that third phone call to the crew on duty, they're going to read a written code that they received from the base before coming here. They're going to match the code that they received to the code that the crew on duty already has. When their codes match, they're able to proceed. But before they do that, they want to get rid of any written record, and so they'll burn the code in the red can you'll see next to the telephone. You'll even see the heat marks on the can from where they would do this. When they made that call successfully, they're going to proceed all the way down the stairs, and that's where they'll make their 4th phone call. And we'll talk about that once we're downstairs as well. So if you care to, please precede me, and we'll move down at the bottom of the stairs. Go right in through the door, and you'll see the red can right there.
Oh, yeah. Well, Maxwell House coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that funny?
I know, if you remember the picture.
Just keep going?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to hold you up either.
Oh, you're fine. There's only 2 of us, or 3 of us total, so you get pretty much of a private tour today, which is really fun. Since there's only 2 of you, I can show you a secret.
Okay.
Come look on the other side of the door. Usually there's too many people for us to do that. Can you see the penny painted there?
Yes.
Yeah. So this particular silo was known as the copper penny because of the copper mine, which at that time was actually 8 miles away, even though we see it rather close by right now.
Aha, I got it.
Yay! So as you can imagine, the door here would be closed when they arrive, and they won't be able to open it by themselves, and that's where the 4th phone call comes in. They need to coordinate with the crew on duty to press these buttons simultaneously with the buttons inside the control center in order to retract these 4 steel pins holding the door closed. I'm told after that, it's the lowest ranking crew member that pulls the door open.
Yeah.
So which one of you wants to give the door a try? I've got one in here, you can try and pull it open.
Apparently it's me.
Apparently,
I bet you they're pretty easy.
The
'Cause of-
hinges are still amazing.
Yeah, because the bearings and stuff that are in
Yeah,
the things.
and think about when it was made. So how big do you think that door is?
I'd probably say about a ton.
I'm gonna go 5 tons.
Oh, it's right between. It's 3 tons, 6,000 pounds. Here's your souvenir and memento of that. So you'll see in here, there's 2 doors. Think of this glass lock area like you would have on a submarine or a spaceship. You don't want access to the outside. This part is going to be fortified. Out there might be damaged and would be damaged in the case of a nearby bomb blast. Here we've got walls that are 4 feet thick. We've got the 2 doors. Only one can be opened at a time. And everything inside from here on is going to be shock protected. You'll see shock absorbers along the walls. You'll see that the cabling for the lights, all the electronics, is extra long so it can't be pulled out in the event of shock. And even the lights themselves are hanging on springs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a second set of blast doors inside, and those blast doors protect crew members in the event that there's a launch or some kind of disturbance inside of the silo. Because that'll be to the right. We're going to go now to the left into the control center.
Here, I'll go again. If I'm holding this up, you say
You're
something,
fine.
okay?
Okay, will do. There's a great view down the hall, too. if you
Oh,
want.
shit.
No, you made the right choice by delaying your.
I think we
your
did for
tour.
sure.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry we can't offer you the tour you'd really love. I have no control over that, but I can give you the best tour possible because it's just the 2.
What was the reasoning behind them stopping the Tucson tours?
You know, I have no idea because I've just been hired. So I didn't, I don't even know anything about how that was done. I do know that the person who was running the museum retired, and then they just restructured things, and beyond that, I don't know. So, since it's 2 of you, I can use you both as my volunteers, and you each can take one of those gray chairs.
I get this one. I can tell this is the launch one.
Yeah.
So, the area we're in now actually has 3 levels to it. There's 3 levels here, and the interesting thing about it is that the floors are not attached to the walls. Everything's there it is. They're suspended on the giant springs. There's 8 of them that surround this space. Yeah, so up above us, on the floor above, there's crew quarters. You saw a little bit of that in the video. There's bunk beds, a kitchen, bathroom, shower. That's where the crew would go for a rest, a meal. They could even sleep for up to 4 hours, although I'm told by people who worked here, they didn't get any sleep when they were on duty. That's the only part of the entire complex where crew members would be allowed to be by themselves. Everywhere else is a no-loan zone, 2-man policy. That's for safety and security reasons. Now this portion, this is the control center, as you see, this is where all the action happens. So in this portion of the complex, one of the persons has to be an officer. Down below us, there's a maintenance level. Down there, there's a generator, there's electrical equipment, there's plumbing, there's a supply of emergency food and water. And the food is, or the water, I should say, is in what looks like Campbell's soup cans, which I found very odd, especially since they're kind of small. You'd think would be bigger, but that's what they had. And I was told by somebody who took a tour a week or so ago, they actually used those into the 90s. Didn't taste very good, but I guess they were shelf stable, so there's that. Now our 4 people consist of 2 officers. You're our 2 officers, you get to sit down. You're our commander, you're in charge of everything. You're our deputy, you have special duties. Behind you, there's that whole panel, that's all the communications equipment. You're gonna be in charge of communications. You're also our timekeeper, and you keep track of personnel. You've got this locator board here with a grease pencil. At any given moment, there may be a maintenance crew working on the missile, doing upgrades or repairs. They're separate from the 4 people in here. You need to keep track of them for the safety and security of everyone involved. Our 2 other personnel are enlisted. Those enlisted personnel consist of a ballistic missile analyst technician who's going to use all these panels here to keep track of the electronics aboard the missile. For example, they keep track of the guidance system here and maintain it. Since I mentioned guidance system, let's talk for a minute about targets. You'll see here we have listed target 1, target 2, and target 3. What do you think those targets are?
Major cities or other nuclear.
Yeah? Yeah.
Military installations, trying to keep them from hitting us.
Hitting us, right. Beyond that, we don't know the specifics. That was classified information, and it remains classified information even to this day. Whereas other things that are classified are declassified after 50 years. Anything involved with the nuclear program has no automatic declassification date. We do know that this particular complex was aimed at target 2, although with the communication, they could have been directed to change that, and the commander would then just literally push a button to switch the targets. We also know that this particular missile here was aimed to do a ground blast, and that means it was being aimed at a facility, probably another silo installation somewhere in enemy territory. An air blast would be something they would aim at a city because it would cause broader damage. Yeah. So, our 4th person is our missile facilities technician, and that person had 30 systems and subsystems that they would keep track of using these panels here. For example, that person would have to keep the missile at 60 degrees Fahrenheit at all times or it would not launch. That has to do with its propellants. They need to be kept at the right state. So we've got our 4 people. What did they do when they first came in for their beginning of their shift? The first thing they would do is they'd go through all the panels here and make sure that all the systems and subsystems are working properly. You can imagine if even a light bulb is out, that's going to give you incorrect information, so you're not going to be able to do your job properly. They had a checklist that they'd go through, and they would spend 3 hours at the beginning of every shift making sure everything was functional. And then, 12 hours into the shift, they'd do that whole process all over again. The other things they'd do while they were here is they would be keeping logs, they would be writing reports, and they'd be receiving communications that might be giving them instructions, it might be giving them information, it definitely would be testing them on the launch sequence. And in fact, I was just told on Christmas Day by Dave, the guy up there, when he was in this very place, they got a call from President Carter wishing them a happy Christmas. So that's pretty cool. So I guess they would get messages from the president on Christmas Day. I hope so. Now, what would be the circumstances that would require us to do a launch here? We'd have to be under attack, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a retaliatory, not a preemptive strike. So we'd have to know we are under attack. That would mean that there are missiles in the air coming our way, and we need to do something about it. Now, who makes that determination and says it's time to launch?
Pentagon.
NORAD?
NORAD's got the information,
President says
and
launch.
then they're going to contact the president. That's what the nuclear football about. And the president is then going to get in touch with the Pentagon. So yes to all 3 answers. That's how it's going to work. The Pentagon is going to then disperse the message to Strategic Air Command. Because remember, we're organizing land, sea, and air. This is a triad. And we've got 54 Titan silos alone. So Strategic Air Command is going to send out the emergency action message, and it's going to sound something like this. when that message came through, you recognize military phonetic alphabet. It's a coded message. Both the commander and the deputy each have one of these emergency message books, and they're going to write their coded message in here. Then they're going to swap books, because you each have one. The message gets repeated, and you're going to write it again. And this is to make absolutely sure that both of you have heard that message correctly and are responding the way you should. Once you've done that, what's your emergency action? Everybody loves the red buttons. Ugh, but that's not how we launch a missile. That's just what we do in Hollywood. What you do instead is you're going to go over there. There's your emergency war order safe, that red safe there. There's 2 padlocks on there. Each of you has your own padlock, and only you know the combination, because the previous crew is going to remove their own padlocks when they leave. You bring yours on when you start your shift.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so when that switch happens, that's when you check the contents of the drawer and make sure everything's there. So you need 2 people. If one of you knows the combination, the other forgot, you're out of luck. Better remember. When you go into that cabinet and you've got everything you need, what you're going to grab is a set of keys, because that's what you're going to use to do your launch. You're also going to look through and find the correct packet that matches up to the beginning of your coded message. Then you open up your packet and you retrieve additional information. There's another slip of paper with coded information on it, and that matches up to the second part of your message. And the reason for that double step is you want to authenticate that the message you received is indeed from the President of the United States, and not from a rogue, not from a spy, somebody breaking into the system. So now that you've got your authentication, you continue on with the rest of your coded message, and the next piece of information you're going to find is what time to do the launch. Now we know it's going to be soon because there's missiles in the air coming your way. We don't have a lot of time. However, we do want a coordinated action. You're the deputy, you're our timekeeper, you're going to use this clock here, right here, to determine the time for the launch. And you'll notice with this clock, it's different. It's a 24-hour clock for one thing. It's not set to local time there, but it's set to Greenwich Mean Time or Zulu time. The reason for that is every missile silo, everyone involved in the nuclear triad, every military base, they're all going to be using this exact same time. No AM, no PM, no daylight savings, no time zones. Everybody's on the same clock. There's a third bit of information that you need from your coded message, and that is the code for this butterfly padlock control. The commander's going to read the 6-character code that goes in here. There's 6 thumb wheels, and each of those has 16 letters on it. You have to put the right code in, because if you do it wrong 6 times in a row, the system will freeze up, just like if you put the wrong password in over and over on the internet. You're also not going to be able to tamper with this because there are explosive devices inside the panel, and if somebody starts to tamper with it, those will explode and they will melt the thumb wheels. And you won't be able to do your launch. You won't be able to guess either because we've got 6 wheels with 16 characters at 6 to the 16th power. That's a 1 in nearly 17 million chance that you're going to be able to guess that correctly. Now, what's the significance of this particular code? Well, this has to do with the technology of the Titan II missile. Earlier versions of the missile had to be removed from the silo, and they had to be filled with liquid oxygen as their part of their propellant. Now, liquid oxygen boils away at minus 290 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a gas at room temperature.
Was that a Titan 1?
Yeah, Titan 1 and the Atlas.
Okay. So
Yeah.
they had to lift it out of the silo
They
before they could fuel it to take
They would
off.
I think they would fuel it and then lift it out.
Oh,
They had
okay.
I was just looking at a video. When we're upstairs, remind me, there's a brochure of all the missile museums in the country. And if you go to their website, they've got really good information. And just before you came back, I was just watching a video that showed footage of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so they would have to be taken up. They would have to be fueled with the liquid oxygen right before launch because it would degrade so quickly. But those actions would cost 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized guys, we don't have 30 minutes, especially after the Cuban Missile Crisis. That really pinched us and said, whew, we got to move fast, much faster than that. Rocket science came to the rescue, and what they figured out was a set of propellants that don't degrade. So there's a fuel and there's an oxidizer. That oxygen, liquid oxygen, was our oxidizer that we could leave on the missile. Now we have a fuel and an oxidizer that we can put aboard the missile and just leave it sit there. So it's ready to go at any moment. That cuts our launch time down to 58 seconds.
Did that degrade after time where they had to change it out while it was in the silo? Did it have a time frame to where it says, okay, we got to take out this fuel and put in some new stuff?
They didn't have to replace it, but what they did do is they would have to pressurize it. So sometimes they would increase the pressure. They might have to remove the fuel to do some work or remove some of it, but it's not an action they would take very regularly.
Okay.
And the thing about that is that it's incredibly volatile, as you can imagine, because it doesn't even need a spark. As soon as it comes in contact, it explodes. And so if it touches you or you breathe any of it, you die. It's very toxic. The oxidizer, if it gets in contact with water, turns into a very volatile acid. So, it's just, on every count, it's pretty dangerous, but it's stable to have it on the missile. So we'll see this, and I'm just going to jump ahead a second. When we go down the cableway, and maybe you saw this in the museum as well, there's suits. You remember that suit? Yeah, so that fills with air, and it's patched. And the reason for that is what protects the people working with the fuel and oxidizer. So that's when they'd wear the suits, including the space helmets. And somebody was on the tour who works on SpaceX. They were here last week, and they said they still use those suits because they still use that same fuel and oxidizer. So that technology has maintained, which is pretty darn impressive in my opinion. Yeah, because that oxidizer is surrounded by unstable oxygen atoms. The fuel is surrounded by unstable hydrogen atoms, so it goes boom. All right, so we've got that, and so this gets back to our launch sequence. They're so volatile, and they're sitting there on the missile at all times. We don't want them getting in contact by accident at any time. So on the engines, you might have seen this when you looked outside, there are butterfly valves, and those are what keeps them separated. When you put the correct code here, that's what allows, during the launch sequence, for the pin to retract and these to open. And that's how they tested the launch sequence. So they would regularly get messages that would have them go through that whole process because they were timed. They had to do it quickly. But what they would do is give them a false code here. So when they turned the key, it would not actually do the launch. That makes sense. So we've got everything we need, and now is when we are going to do our launch. What happens? You're going to put your key in here. Your key is on the side here. Again, this is a two-person operation. One person can't do both things. You have to turn your keys simultaneously. And once you turn your keys, there's no turning back. That's why they had all the steps in advance to make sure you were ready and certain this is time.
So all this whole system here, all it does is control a ball valve. Because once that ball valve opens, that missile's gone.
Well, no. Once this opens, it allows the sequence to occur. So the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to start you're going to turn your key. That means the computer takes over the process. The valve, the butterfly valve, opens up. But before anything else can happen, there's empty batteries on the missile. They're going to operate it. It's currently getting charged from here. We want it to be charged on its own. Those batteries are empty until the launch sequence. Once you start the launch sequence, those batteries fill up with electrolytes and power up, and that takes 28 seconds.
Oh, that's for like the gyroscopes and stuff?
It's
The electronics in the missile.
Yes, exactly. It'll control the electronics in the missile. And so we need to power that up. Once 28 seconds have passed, that's powered up. And then, when it's powered, there's going to be 9,000 gallons of water that are going to pour into the bottom of the silo. And the reason for that gets back to this technology. This missile can launch from inside the silo itself. However, when it does that, it has the force of 2 747s. That amount of force creates sound waves that would shake the missile apart in the confines of the silo. So we can't have that. So what rocket science figured out was if we put water in the bottom of the silo during the launch sequence, when the engines fire, it turns to steam. And the process of making steam actually dampens the sound.
Oh.
Isn't that cool? I think it's cool. And so when we saw that in the video, there's steam coming out along with the exhaust, and that's protecting the whistle. So we've got our water in the bottom. We haven't fired up yet because we've got to open that silo cover. It's 760 tons. It's heavy. It flies open in 19 seconds. There's hydraulics and it's on a rail. The rail's got to be put in place because part of it is retracted. We don't want it opening unless we're ready for it. The other thing that happens is you're going to get an alarm because it's surrounded by motion detecting radar.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that's passed through, you're going to have an alarm go off. And then there's going to be one more communication with the guidance control here and the guidance control on the missile to make sure it knows where it's going. That's when the fuel and oxidizer come together. So even though the butterfly valves have opened, they haven't come together yet until that process is ready. Once they spin together, they immediately explode and it fires off within a moment. And all that's in 58 seconds. So do you want to simulate a launch? We can see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you're going to do is put your left hand on the key. You're going to count us down to a short countdown. And when you do that, you're both going to turn to the right 1/4 turn and hold it for 5 seconds. Then you can let it go. And you can just read that top line and tell me what you see once that's happening so we can time our launch. You ready?
Okay.
Okay. Pierre Canto.
So on my mark, 3, 2, 1, mark.
There you go. Hold for 5 and then you can let it go.
Yeah.
And read what you see here.
I have my glasses on.
Oh.
My reading glasses.
Okay, so we've got.
I can see all these lights came on.
There's lights came on. So launch enabled. That's the computer firing up.
Batteries activated.
Batteries activated. That means the battery's getting filled with electrolytes. There's actually a pyrotechnic knife that stabs a bag full of electrolytes that pour into the battery. Takes 28 seconds, which feels really long when you turn that key. Do we have another light?
Yeah, APS power.
The APS power light means the batteries have filled up, they're charged, they're ready to go. That's our silo soft light. That's the silo door flying open. Should be seeing the guidance go light there.
Yep.
Okay, and then we take another breath. Meanwhile, water is pouring into the bottom of the silo, getting ready for the engines to fire up. Have we got our engines firing?
Not yet. Yep.
There it is, and
Lift off.
lift off. That's it. Whew.
And there goes 20 million people.
And there goes 20 million people. And here's your I turned the key card.
I turned the key.
Yay, you did it.
You just launched the nuclear.
You did it together because you couldn't do it without you. Takes two to make it happen.
Those commie red bastards.
So, now what? While you go through your post-launch sequence, this is the military after all, people ask, do you hear it, do you feel it? Probably not so much. We've got all our stabilization. The other thing is this is all tube technology. This is put in the 60s. It's loud in here. There's equipment, there's fans. If we had a very nearby bomb blast, maybe we'd feel it. Dave, who worked in one of these, was just telling me that they would get a message. The scariest moment he had was when there had been an incident and they were told to strap down their furniture. So there would be expected movement under certain circumstances. If we had a direct hit here, probably it wouldn't survive, but it's designed to survive things nearby.
How deep are we right now?
So right now we're about 35 feet under.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's very fortified. So, let's say we survived this whole thing. What do we do now? Well, they've got a 30-day supply of food and water. Your air vent got shut off during the launch, but they did put a ladder in there. So, if you want to hang out for a while, you've got 3 weeks of air and 30 days of food, you could stay here and choose to see what's happening up top.
Do we have, like down here, do they have dose meters up there before they even open the hatch to see if it's safe to even go open the hatch?
They said they weren't even given any. I think
There's no equipment out there saying if there's radiation out there?
I don't know if there's equipment out there. They didn't have any personal equipment with them. We can ask Dave when we.
Well, I mean, like, okay, we launched the stuff and now we're sitting here waiting and wondering
Yeah.
if we got hit, can we open the silos, or if we open silos and then
Right,
zap, we got zapped.
Right. Well,
Probably didn't care at that point.
well,
You guys did your job. That's all that matters.
Well, to be honest, yeah. I mean, to be honest, they didn't. I think they didn't really expect people were going to survive. But they gave you an out. You could go out and find out what's happening. I don't know what equipment up top would still be in existence, to be honest, right? So there's that choice, and they even had a place designated in the mountains where people could meet up. And what I like to say, since this is a combat position, so until 1978 that would have been that, but after 1978 there were women up as part of combat missions, so they could have, in theory, repopulated the planet, but fortunately we never had to figure that out. Thank goodness for that. So should we go down and take a look at that missile?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it. You can proceed me on down, and I'll meet you right there.
Let's see, some pictures of them.
Okay.
Look at that spring.
Yeah, isn't that something?
And this goes up to the cruise quarters?
That's the cruise quarters up there, and then down there is the maintenance level.
And what level would that be?
So that's,
Or does it keep on going?
no, that's just it. So it's just 3 levels in this portion.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking we're...
Yeah, you're thinking that, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Another door there. Another one here. Oh, there's those suits.
Yep. With the space
Oh, there's-
on it, I love that.
And these are all cylinders, or what are these?
Yeah,
Or
this
these?
is all part of the hydraulics.
Okay.
Yep. Keep everything stable.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody asked why they're larger on one side than the other, and that I do not know.
Intersection.
So now we're on level 2 of the silo. There's 3 windows along here if you want to
Okay.
get a couple of different views. So this silo goes down 150 feet. It's 9 levels plus that space at the bottom for the water to come in. And if you see the side walls have panels,
Yep.
and that has spun fiberglass in it, and that also helps to deaden the sound. This is the largest ICBM ever deployed by the United States. It's 103 feet tall and 10 feet in diameter. And this particular one came to us from Shepherd Air Force Base, where it was used for training. They had 49 they used for training. They deployed 54. There was 18 here, 18 in Arkansas, and 18 in Kansas.
Oh, this isn't the original one from this
No.
silo?
And the reason for that is this one never had propellants on it.
See, when I was here last time,
Yeah.
they told us that that was the one, and they had to drill holes in the tanks for the Russians for the salt, so they can inspect it. They had to drill holes into the fuel tanks. They never said it came from one that was never even active
Yeah,
or
no, they
used
pulled
one.
that one out and put this one here because
Okay.
the residue from the fuel and oxidizer are so toxic. They just were like, we're taking that one, we'll put this one here. Yeah, so that was an effort in itself. Yeah, this baby's 103 feet tall and 10 feet in diameter. And this one weighs 15,000 pounds because it doesn't have the fuel and oxidizer. But fully loaded, it would weigh 330,000 pounds. What you're seeing here, this is the guidance system. So this is old school guidance. They would use light. They have had this equipment that with the lens, and it would be aimed right here at the gyroscopes inside the missile. No GPS at that time. That's why this was superseded by more advanced equipment. They actually used this for far longer than intended. It was supposed to be for 10 years, and they ended up using it for 24.
So explain to me, they shot light in here for guidance, but then to tell it it's guidance right before it took off?
This would just be to calibrate it,
Oh, okay.
right? Because it would just be to make sure that it was on track. And then the white, that's where the water would shoot in. The other cool thing about these is they were able to use them for the space program, and this has to do with the fact that when they launch, they actually leave the atmosphere and re-enter. So if this were used as a missile, the only thing left to re-enter from the atmosphere would be the black re-entry vehicle up there. Everything else would drop off because it's a two-stage rocket. It would fly 6,300 miles, and it would get to its destination in about a half an hour. So it's flying at 20 times the speed. I know, but the most amazing part of all that is it's only powered for the first 5.5 minutes of its flight. Stage 1 takes it about 40 miles, and it lasts only about 2.5 minutes. Stage 2 is about another 200 miles, and it lasts about 3 minutes. And those stages drop off. And the whole rest of the trajectory, that 6,300 miles, it's flying on wood. And there's just little vernier motors, and they're just tweaking because it's set on a trajectory.
And you said this is where the water shot in the sump the bottom?
And then it's resting on that wreck there, yeah. But that's why they could use them in the space program, so they use them in the Gemini mission. Neil Armstrong flew in one, low Earth orbit. They used 2 of them for the Viking missions to Mars, and they used one for the Voyager mission, which still sends data back from outside their solar system. And even after they were decommissioned and had more advanced weapon systems, they were able to use Titan IIs to launch satellites. The most recent one was in 2003, which is pretty darn cool.
Wow.
If you're ready, we can go back up top. You've already walked around up top, right?
Yeah.
You're welcome to do so again. Did you look at the engines and see from above or anything?
Yeah, we did. Okay.
Have you gone to Pee Wee Space Museum?
Oh yeah. We were there Monday.
Nice.
Got it?
Thank you. So when you were at Pima, did you see Looking Glass? That's the
But-
air.
Better explain it.
Yeah. So Looking Glass is the name they gave. There was an airplane in the air 24/7 during the entire Cold War. So in the event that Strategic Air Command could not send the launch message, they would rely on that airplane.
Yes, 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 we
Yeah.
did. Yes.
So if they needed to send a message from Looking Glass, it would be received there. That's the ultra high frequency receiver. That's ultra low frequency there. And then these are the regular radio towers, and you see one of them is retractable. There's a second retractable tower as well. And those would only come up if the primary antenna were damaged. So they thought ahead, tried to make sure of everything. The security system, so where that air conditioner is, that would be the escape hatch. And you see those scoops, that's the radar motion detector. And you see that surrounds the silo cover as well.
That picks up anything that's around.
Yeah, so anything that crosses through that radar, it's going to trigger it. And I'm told that animals would trigger it, which would kind of freak them out, as you can imagine. And you might also notice that the silo cover is halfway open. That's so we can see. But also there's blocks behind it. Those were added in. That's part of the SALT treaty. And they did cut into the nose cone or reentry vehicle. And that's so any spy plane or satellite coming over can see that there's no bomb on board. So this is the end of our formal tour, but thank you very much.
Well, thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome. It was a real pleasure.
It was. It
I'm
was
sorry I
our
couldn't
nice.
take you everywhere you'd love to go, but I hope I did a good job for you to enjoy.
Well, you did. And if they ever open up the top to bottom, we'll definitely drive
Yeah,
back.
definitely come back. So keep an eye open. Like I said, it won't be anytime soon if it happens, because I know they're just trying to get everything all sorted out. But I think it would be cool too. So
all right.
yeah, hope to see you again soon.
Okay.
Then.
Thank
Have
you
a
very much.
lovely
We'll
rest of
see you
your
back
day.
inside.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Well, what'd you think?
Very interesting.
Pretty cool, huh?
And just the precision that had to go in and the security to even get into the building.
She didn't understand my question when I talked about all those keys are doing is opening those butterflies. Because once those butterfly valves open, you can't stop it. So yeah, those keys might dump water and battery, but it's also so if somebody like the way I was thinking, right? Some rogue dude, he goes in there with a fucking wrench and grabs that butterfly valve and goes down there. Whoop! Yeah, he's gonna fry himself, but it's gonna launch. We need to go around to the other side. Well, let me do this while these are still on.
So you can get to the other side from here.
Oh, you see his ugly face. Wow. That's so crazy.
I see where it's open over here.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You might draft it again too.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead. There's the door that we were just looking at. See right there to the left? The door open on that gangplank.
Yeah.
Alright, so that was a Titan II missile museum. Do a quick 360 here. And there was, what was there, 54 of these total around in these 3 states.